Check out carmarshal.com. The link is in the description. They help support us.
New federal bill targets patriot groups and citizen militias as domestic terrorists. An ominous new bill is targeting millions of peaceful Americans who identify with being a patriot by lumping them in with extremely rare violent hate groups. By Matt Agorist, February 12, 2018. Washington, D.C. The Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act of 2018, introduced this month in the House, is making patriot groups and citizen militias uneasy, and for good reason. It is specifically targeting them. As the bill's summary notes, the purpose of the legislation is to authorize dedicated domestic terrorism offices within the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation to analyze and monitor domestic terrorist activity and require the federal government to take steps to prevent domestic terrorism. While on the surface this sounds like a rational idea, when we dig deeper into the bill, we discover just what they mean by preventing domestic terrorism. According to the FBI, the definition of a domestic terrorist is individuals and/or groups inspired by or associated with primarily U.S.-based movements that espouse extremist ideologies of a political, religious, social, racial, or environmental nature. The FBI notes the specific example of the two crazy individuals in Las Vegas who killed police officers in 2014. For example, the June 8, 2014 Las Vegas shooting, during which two police officers inside a restaurant were killed in an ambush-style attack, which was committed by a married couple who held anti-government views and who intended to use the shooting to start a revolution. The bill also associates these deranged murderers with the Patriot label. However, what this bill fails to mention is that these supposed Patriot movement domestic terrorists were actually banished from real Patriot groups because they were on the police payroll and known to be provocateurs. As the late Will Grigg wrote, after the Millers murdered three people, Las Vegas Metro officers Alan Beck and Igor Saldo, and Joseph Wilcox, an armed citizen who heroically tried to stop their rampage, their former handlers claimed that they were unaware of the couple's anti-police sentiments. That claim is difficult to credit, given that Gerard Miller had a lengthy criminal record, and the fact that the couple had made itself very prominent in protests associated with the Occupy Wall Street movement. But that is not all. The bill goes on further to credit the Southern Poverty Law Center, a group who makes hundreds of millions of dollars selling hate by labeling anyone they disagree with politically as a hate group. According to the bill. According to the Southern Poverty Law Center, in 2015, for the first time in 5 years, the number of hate groups in the United States rose by 14%. The increase included a more than twofold rise in the number of Ku Klux Klan chapters. The number of anti-government militias and patriot groups also grew by 14% in 2015. Yes, the KKK and neo-Nazi groups are abhorrent and deal in hate, but the SPLC doesn't just target these groups like they used to, thus the reason for the increase in hate and extremist groups. As reasons John Stossel pointed out recently, SPLC once fought useful fights. They took on the Ku Klux Klan. But now they go after people on the right with whom they disagree. They are also making a killing while doing it. Morris Dees, SPLC's co-founder, promised to stop fundraising once his endowment hit $55 million. But when he reached $55 million, he upped the bar to $100 million, saying that would allow them to cease costly fundraising. But again, when they reached $100 million, they didn't stop. Now they have $320 million, a large chunk of which is kept in offshore accounts. Really? It's on their tax forms. What is particularly disturbing about the SPLC is the fact that they fail to make any mention of openly violent and hateful group who's been caught time and again laying waste to property and innocent people with whom they disagree. As Stossel points out, in return for those donations to SPLC, the world gets a group that now lists people like Ben Carson and Fox commentators Laura Ingraham, Judge Andrew Napolitano and Jeanine Pirro as extremists, but doesn't list the leftist militant hate groups known as Antifa. Also, Any mention of Antifa is conveniently absent from this bill as well. What's more, as the bill points out, in November 2017, the Federal Bureau of Investigation released its annual hate crime incident report, which found that in 2016, hate crimes increased by almost 5%, including a 19% rise in hate crimes against American Muslims. Similarly, the previous year's report found that in 2015, hate crimes increased by 6%. Much of that increase came from a 66% rise in attacks on American Muslims. In both reports, race-based crimes were most numerous. More than 50% of those hate crimes targeted African Americans. This number is real. As TFTP reported last year, attacks against innocent Muslims have grown. However, the largest purveyor of hate against Muslims is the United States government. For nearly 2 decades, the US government has constantly fear-mongered about Islamic terrorism and how they hate our freedom. But it was America's foreign policy that has fostered the expansion terrorism, not to mention, fund it. This constant fear of a brown boogeyman coupled with rhetoric about refugees and travel bans has led to an environment in which hate is bred and the US government is the head cheerleader. The bottom line is that there are undoubtedly crazy people out there who are willing to kill for some cause they think they believe in. There have been horrific incidents of people snapping and killing citizens and police alike. However, it is not the millions of other people who identify as patriots nor the tens of thousands of militia groups that are doing this. Yes, there are hate groups who attack others and the government should prevent that, but lumping everyone in with these groups is not only dangerous but Orwellian. It is important to note that most people who question the state do so out of a desire to prevent death, not foster it. People who questioned the narrative of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq did so because they wanted to prevent a war in which many would die. However, they were labeled as kooks and conspiracy theorists by the establishment despite being proven right years later. This is nothing new. In fact, in spite having no real reason to go after conspiracy theorists and patriot groups, the government has a long history of infiltrating groups and labeling those who question the status quo as a threat. It even has a name, PATCON, short for Patriot Conspiracy. Indeed, much of the police state which has risen up around the country is in response to the essentially non-existent threat from those who want to expose the crimes of the state who are labeled as extremist groups. YouTube and Google have even gotten in on the action and have moved to censor evidence of US war crimes and historical footage of war. A police sergeant in Morgan County, Indiana admitted in May of 2014 that his department had obtained an armored vehicle in part because of returning military veterans were deemed domestic terror threats by Homeland Security in 2009. In August of 2013, Concord, New Hampshire Police Chief John Duvall secretly contacted Homeland Security and demanded an armored vehicle due to the alleged threat posed by peaceful libertarians. The MIAC report, a federal training document famously presented to Missouri police in 2009, went as far as falsely tying supporters of former presidential candidate Ron Paul and the Constitution to extremist groups as well. In 2014, a sheriff's deputy admitted on video that these weapons of war were needed to fend off constitutionalists with firearms. All this bill does is further these previous attacks against those who want peace and freedom, and it does so by blurring the lines between real extremists and freedom-loving activists. After all, if tyrants can associate hate and extremism with the ideas of peace and liberty, the herd will be far easier to keep under control and will have no problem voting away their rights to fight this non-existent threat. Become a patron.
Hey, Sheriff, we have a question about why your office, your intelligence division, is investigating private citizens for criminal investigation that happen to be activists that are overseeing your department. Why would you have your intelligence division investigate private citizens? We have done...
for life hating so much.
Sir, we don't hate anyone. We love freedom and we love American people. And government is out of control. That's why you're seeing such a revolt nationwide. Why can't you just answer, why is Susan Edwards, your intelligence division, investigating private citizens? This should not happen.
Are you here to apply for a job?
Possibly I might be applying for a job, but that's irrelevant to my question. Why would you ask that question?
Well, enjoy the fair.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Excuse you?
Excuse me, sir.
So those of you that haven't
Wow.
been on a bike before, we're
Sheriff's
just
getting a little too pushy. You work for us, Sheriff. Just keep that in mind. At one time we respected you, but not with that type of attitude.
County. This is Charlotte County Cop Watch, and I wanted to explain what fair use is. You can use pieces of news articles if you're doing it for news reporting, you have commentary, and you're doing it for education purposes. So that's what fair use is, as you can see right here. Another reason why I wanted to make this video is to let you know I have just joined with Patreon. A nice thing with Patreon, I make no money on YouTube. They took the money away years ago, and so this is another way to give, and it's a nice thing too because you can give monthly. You can give $1, $5, $10, whatever. I do 4 to 5 hours a day on trying to wake the sheep up on how corrupt it is and different ways that you can fight the corruption. So Patreon is a way that you can do it, and then of course the old way is still there. Donate to Sheriff County Cop Watch with PayPal or credit card. So keep that in mind. 4 to 5 hours a day. I make no money, but the corruption happened to me and I'm sick of it, so I'm trying to wake people up. But my wife would love it if if we could get some help out there. There's 47,000 subscribers. Just think if each one of you subscribers just gave a let's say, actually, yes, $1 a month. 47,000 subscribers gave $1 a month. That would be awesome. That's not going to happen. But anyways, that would be great if it did happen. But, you know, do the math in your head. Just think about it. Like I said, 4 to 5 hours a day. I get no money from YouTube. YouTube has gone nuts. You can't do anything anymore. They're taking the money away everywhere. So these are a couple different ways that you can still help out with all this time that I put in. And as you know, I'm in a special situation where, you know, at least I can do it. You know, 4 to 5 hours a day. We have a cleaning company during the day. That's what allows me to do this, and we're debt free. So this is my hobby. I don't go fishing and all that other crap. I try to save the world. So help me out to make the wife happy, man. In fact, if you guys did give $1 a day, and there was 47,000 of you, and you did it, and each of you gave $1, and that was every month, oh my God, yes, I could quit. I could start suing them. Another idea, too, that we have is, you know, if I got, you know, some funds, we could actually contact everyone that has been ticketed and or arrested and put in jail and start sending them postcards to let them know we're here, and to see if everything went all right, and if it didn't, find out their story. So we could even do more investigations and more lawsuits. Lawsuits take money. So just think about that. You know, 47,000 of you so far right now. You know, $1 a day. I mean, $1 a month on Patreon, or $5 a month Patreon, 10, 20, whatever. Just do the math in your head. Help out. This is a lot of work every single day. Thanks.